The people of St. George were determined to build a college because they knew in the long run, education would be key to the survival of their community. The college grew and flourished. Lots of really great, legendary faculty members. I'm a little bit biased, but my grandpa, A.K. Hafen, was one of those, and he was the humanities department. He taught English, Spanish, and German. Juanita Brooks, who was truly legendary, she wrote a story about a faculty meeting one morning in 1928. President Nichols was presiding, and he started the meeting by saying, "We're going to offer a sabbatical to one of our faculty." At that time, they may not have even known what a sabbatical was, but he said, "You can go for a year of education off to a university at half pay, and then when you come back, you'll have your full-time job with a raise." And he said, "We're going to offer this first sabbatical to A.K. Hafen. He's the one who's been here the longest." My grandpa said, "That is so awesome and that is so wonderful, but I can't accept it. I have children at home and my wife. I couldn't leave my family and go off to school, and I couldn't take them with me." So he turned that down. And so President Nichols went on to the next in tenure and the next in tenure, and each of them, for some reason, were not able to accept it. And then it came to Juanita Brooks. And she said, "President Nichols, don't look at me. If you're going to offer that to me, I will accept it so fast it'll make your head swim." And she did. She went to Columbia University in New York City, and that is where her legend, her legacy as one of the greatest writers of the American West really flourished and began. She came back to Dixie and taught all through those years. But I like to think that it was my grandpa who helped her, helped open that door for her to make that step in her life.
Her reputation and the influence she had on education here in St. George was significant. She was described as having a brilliant, sensitive, and creative mind. I consider her by far the most acclaimed scholar to have set foot on this campus. She was fearless in her effort to learn and to communicate the truth. And some of it was hard to hear, and some of it was beautiful to hear. And I think that's what makes her a whole person.
But she becomes this world-class author. Mountain Meadows Massacre is her most noted book, but she was a great historian.
And she is a phenomenal storyteller. She does her research that is quite accurate. I know during my time with the LDS Church and church history, we'd done a lot of research about the Mountain Meadow Massacre. And 50 years earlier, she had it pretty right, and she didn't have access to the records that we did with the church, but she got it right.
Her writing, I think, was just like her, brilliant, creative, and honest, even when the truth is hard. And I think that's what courage and integrity is. I think as a woman, she really did some significant groundbreaking and pioneering and trailblazing, which is what our mascot is.
The level of commitment to education was just always very, very high here, well beyond what we would expect from a small town.
You go back to some of those really great professors. They could have taught anywhere, but this is where they wanted to be, and they made a great difference in the lives of many, many people. And they set that standard, that academic standard of excellence that is still part of the university today.
Certainly my top 10 professors ever throughout my academic career, and I have a PhD, I would say 5 of them were here in my associate degree experience. So significant scholars were here for such a small institution that I think transformed many lives, not just mine.
Andrew Barnum is a great example of a scholar and a professor who could have gone anywhere. He could have taught in the highest echelons of academia, but he stayed at a 2-year college, Dixie Junior College, and taught on a level that was so low for him because his mind was clear up here.
I wanted to stay at Dixie. I was not satisfied with everything that I had accomplished at Dixie. I wanted to build a museum, and I wanted to continue to teach here. I wanted to continue to teach in small classes. Back in Iowa, I was teaching classes with 350 students, and it was a drudge. You probably knew the top 10%, the bottom 10%, the 80% were unknown. And I didn't want any more of that.
I have not had a more difficult course than what I had from Andrew Barnum, and now I'm so grateful. Science is what my doctorate is in science education. I'm so grateful I had the influence of Andrew Barnum on my education.
I think I've been successful here. I think I've made some contributions. I think I'm still making contributions here by even directing the museum, by getting acquainted with the students, by getting acquainted with the faculty, by getting some things accomplished that I've always wanted to do.
Dr. Barnum's fame extended well beyond Utah's Dixie. During his career here, he was offered the directorship of the Philadelphia Museum of Natural Science and the same at the Smithsonian Museum of Natural History in Washington, D.C.
I want to continue teaching, and there was no teaching at either Philadelphia or Washington, D.C. And so I turned down both of these jobs. Probably the two most important jobs in my particular field in the entire country, if not in the world. And I turned them down.
Any regrets?
No, none whatsoever. I have never apologized for staying at Dixie.
He was here when I was a student. When I came back as a professor, he was here still. And really, he stayed and oversaw the museum in the biology department, Natural Sciences Museum, but he stayed here and oversaw that until, I would guess, a year before his death. So he is a legend here on campus, and they have a statue for him over by the Science Building.
I'm going to stay here for as long as I can. And probably they'll find me early some morning, and I'll be stone dead, but I'll still be here in the museum. But I'm planning on continuing until then. I could probably think of 1,000 things to add, but we were about out of time.
According to who?
And I talk to people all the time who say, I came to Dixie, I didn't know where I was going or if it would even work, but someone took me under their wing and mentored me through.
Actually, I grew up in Salt Lake City, and my father was a truck driver. And he drove from Salt Lake to St. George, and he said, did you ever think of maybe going to Dixie College? So I came with him on the truck. He dropped me off on the highway, and he said, I have no idea where Dixie College is, but go into the service station and they should be able to help you. And so that was the reason I was called to Dixie. And I was a very lost, lonely person. I hadn't been away from home, and I was thrown into life at Dixie College. It was probably the worst experience I ever had in my life. I had no friends. I hated it, so I was sitting on the steps of the Fine Arts Center with my tears rolling down my cheeks. This lady by the name of Rowene DeFury walked up to me, and she said, wow, you look like you could use a friend. She said, how about you get in my car and we go up to Larson's Frost Top and have lunch? You know, Rowene was the most dynamic individual, and you always felt like you were the only #1 person in her life. So I stayed around, and wow, my life changed tremendously. I get emotional when I think about it. All of a sudden, instead of me getting D's and F's in school, I was getting A's and B's. And Rowene brought that out of me. Her main thing was bringing people together. She brought generations together and started a group called the Program Bureau. And they would go out and perform at different events in the community. Then it became a recruiting tool for Dixie College. Rowene became the heart of the Dixie spirit. And that's what kept this school alive at that time, was the heart of the Dixie spirit and that unity that she brought. Her presence, I mean, she was a large woman. So when she walked into a room, you knew she was there. And I always tell people that Rowene needed double doors to go through. And they said, oh, double doors? I mean, isn't that kind of rude because of her size? I said, no, it wasn't a situation of her hip size. It was that Rowene had to walk through a door like this. She had to enter the room. And so she needed double doors to enter the room. So Rowene had written the song, Just for Now.
We get sentimental whenever we hear the school songs of Dixie or meet with the old gang.
The words are so embedded in all of us that came to Dixie.
And wonder why such happy times cannot last. But
You know, every time you hear that song, it brings back, you know, what Dixie and the memories mean to us. So I do sing it at a lot of funerals. Go to the cemetery and you will see a lot of gravestones that say "Just for Now" on them, of the people that went to Dixie and that the heart of Dixie went with them when they left us.
but we must